So anymore, bikes are just so darn expensive. But do they have to be? What if you could get an awesome gravel adventure bike for under $1,000? We're talking about the Primos Dame. Is it the best gravel bike under $1,000? Let's find out. Primos sent me this bike a few months ago with no requirements. They just said, do whatever you want with it. So I did. I rode the piss out of it. I have over 1,000 miles on this bike now, and I figure at this point, I'm ready to give my opinion. I've taken it on many gravel adventures, road rides, commutes, and trips around the neighborhood. I've taken it everywhere, from single track to epic mountain climbs. And what do I think? I think this is quite possibly the best gravel bike under $1,000. I say gravel bike, but it's really an adventure bike. It's whatever you want it to be. Load up some bags and take it bikepacking, strip it down, use it as a commuter. It can do anything. It has fender mounts, front and rear. It has rack mounts. You can strap anything you want to it. You can get creative. It is really a do-it-all machine. So how'd they do it for under $1,000? $899 US specifically. So first of all, it's a steel frame. You won't find carbon anywhere on this bike, but steel is real. It's certainly not a compromise. They use butted tubing for the front triangle to save some weight, and it just rides like a dream. This thing absorbs bumps, cruises through rough terrain without breaking a sweat. They also save some money using a microshift 1x10 Sword drivetrain. This thing, I thought 1x10, I'd be feeling the gaps, especially on the road. It's really pretty nice. There's one major complaint, and it's not really microshift's fault. It's that this bike is geared really tall. So steep climbs are brutal. With a 48 tooth front ring and 46 rear, it is really hard going up steep climbs. You get above 10% and you're really working, get to 20% and it's brutal. I do plan to switch out that front ring with something smaller, but I just don't have the right ring lying around the shop, so I haven't made that swap. So oftentimes when you go with a 1x drivetrain, you get a wider range because they drop down to a 10 tooth for the smallest cog, and that requires a special driver on your hub. This is an 11 tooth, so it works with a standard HG driver, which is obviously saving some money there. So because of that, your range is going to be a little bit limited, but with a large front ring, really top speed's not a problem. I wish it had a lower low gear. So really a smaller front ring and even probably a 52 on the back would be fantastic. But that's going to take a little bit of money and a little bit of work. Over the course of 1,000 miles, I've had 0 technical issues with this bike. I've done nothing but lube the chain. I haven't even washed it. This bike has been the epitome of worry-free. So over those 1,000 miles, I've made very few changes to the bike itself. I did add a redshift suspension stem, and I changed out the bar tape. I put on some wolf tooth supple bar tape. Now these changes aren't any kind of knock on the bike. These are changes that I've made to my high-end carbon gravel bike as well. Simply, once you start riding with 5mm thick bar tape, any other bar tape feels ridiculously thin. I had a hard time with the bars, not because of bad bar tape, but just because it's not what I was used to. So putting on the thicker bar tape, that solved that. And ever since riding the Tour Divide 10 years ago now, I've had issues with my hands, so I need extra comfort. That thicker bar tape plus the suspension stem kind of knocks the bumps off and keeps me from having hand issues. I'm really surprised by this saddle. In general, the first thing I do with any bike is I replace the saddle. I prefer the Brooks Cambium C17, which is on all my other bikes. But this thing is surprisingly pretty comfortable. The Sella Royale Comfort Groove saddle really seems to suit my back end quite well. Now there is an upgrade that I probably should have made long ago, but I'm just too damn lazy. I'm still running the original tubes in these tires. I haven't had any issues, so I've just kind of left it, but I run tubeless on everything. So these are tubeless compatible wheels, tubeless compatible tires. I just need to take the time and make the swap. I'm sure I would love that extra traction and comfort of the lower tire pressures and the peace of mind that comes with running tubeless and tire sealant. Now the bike includes fender mounts, front and rear, and it also includes 3 bolt mounts on the top tubes for bolt-on top tube bags, and those 3 mounts allow for bolting on those extra long top tube bags that are now all the rage. It includes 2 sets of bottle cage bolts And I wish it included a set of bolts on the down tube so I can put a tool keg or another bottle down there. But as it is, I'm gonna need to strap a bag on there. Works great with a handlebar bag mounted to the front. I have a pretty small burrito bag for right now, but I've put a full-size bag for bikepacking trips, not a problem there. And the saddle, I'm able to put a saddle bag on as well. I have a lightweight mica rat tail rack that works pretty well on this, but I don't have a bolt-on rack to test out those mounts, but I'm sure they're perfectly fine. And if you really want extra cargo space, there's a set of 3 cargo bolts on both sides of your fork, so you can strap on more bags there as well. The bike features an external BSA bottom bracket for easy service. Plus, with the mechanical brakes and external cable routing, this thing is the ultimate in field serviceability. If you find yourself in the middle of Africa with a broken cable, you can fix it without any special tools. There's no internal cable routing to worry about. Just pop in a new cable and you're good to go. The brakes are Tektro mechanical brakes, and in general, I'm not a big fan of mechanical brakes. Once you've ridden hydraulic, it's hard to go back, but that field serviceability that comes with mechanical brakes is certainly nothing to laugh at. These brakes include compressionless housing, which really helps with controlling that power so you don't have to squeeze super hard to get brakes. They are mechanical, so you do still have to squeeze harder than hydraulic, but it's not insane. I found after a couple rides, I quickly adapted and I was used to it and didn't have any issues. While the drivetrain is microshift sword, it's worth noting that the cassette is a Sunrace cassette. I do wish they went with the microshift cassette just because it does have a couple extra teeth for the large ring. That would really help. And then also it has some generic cranks instead of the sword cranks. The chainring mounts to the cranks using what looks like the SRAM standard 3-bolt pattern, so you can swap that out with any SRAM compatible chainring. That should work just fine. So a little about Primos. They're a small company, and I mean small. There's 2 people running the whole show. They're based out of Portland, Oregon, and there's something special about Primos where they know cycling is just too important to be taken seriously. Primos has that little edge that Surly used to have. Surly used to be a company with an attitude making affordable bikes. Now Surly is a company with an attitude making surprisingly expensive bikes. Primos, however, is making super affordable bikes, and they have that same attitude. This bike is just fun to ride. I can't explain it. It's heavier than my main bike, but I find I like riding this more. It's just fun. It makes me smile every time I get on it. I don't take the ride too seriously, yet at the same time, I have gotten KOMs on Strava using this bike that I haven't been able to get on my lightweight carbon bike. So go figure. This thing is fun, it's fast, it's just a great ride. Other than the mods to the cockpit, I did make one other minor tweak. The cable routing here to the derailleur, the cable's kind of flared out and I worried it was going to catch on branches. So I zip tied it here to the chainstay and now it's in nice and tight to the bike. I think that is a nice touch that they should find some way to add that capability as a default, because that is super tidy now. Before it was kind of flopping out and a little bit worrisome. The bike features through axles front and rear, so it's future-proof. If you want to run 700 wheels, you can do it. It's by default, it's 650 by 50 mil tires, but you can go 700 by 45, I think should fit on here fine. So you have quite a few options there. I haven't tried swapping out to larger wheels yet, but that's certainly something on my radar to try out. One of the most important features of any budget-conscious bike is upgradability, and the Primos Dame's use of through axles, flat mount brakes, tapered head tube, and BSA bottom bracket means you can upgrade this to your heart's content. As your skills grow, as you grow with the sport, the bike can grow with you. That's super important to get the most value, most bang for your buck out of the bike. If you're a beginner looking for a bikepacking bike, you can't go wrong with this. The bike can grow with you. You want to swap out a lighter carbon fork, go for it. You want to swap out different wheels, go for it. This bike, it's a great foundation that can grow with you over time, which is super important when talking about a beginner level bike. Having multiple bikes to choose from and choosing this should tell you something. This bike is just amazing. So, if you have the opportunity and the means, I recommend you pick one up. I get nothing from the sale, but there's a link in the description anyway to make it easier. But yeah, I get no cut, there's no affiliate deals. It's just a bike that I think is awesome and I think you should check out. And most importantly, you'd be supporting a small company really trying to start a bike brand in a really horrible time to start a bike brand. With tariffs and other bike industry challenges, it's pretty refreshing to see someone willing to take on those challenges while some of the big brands are going under or struggling, Chapter 11, etc. So, Primos, kudos to you. And hey, if gravel's not for you, they also have a hardtail mountain bike. Full rigid mountain bike, kind of the classic old school, what mountain biking used to be. Their attitude towards bikes just to maximize the fun. It's pretty awesome.
I've been watching all of Try's online channels to the morning. Once engaged, I know I'm done. Algorithm that's alluring.